Nyaze to a power. Once again to Kawasapa Convo Unscripted. Nite Gunza the Street Disciple. Father Warrior and of course Minole Boy Mother alikuwa na guest aka Gangster Journalist ukipenda Sigalawe. Na siko alone kwa information ya Convo Unscripted. Niko na the one and only baddest, tallest, most bearded.
Mambo beard. Philip Waleki, thank you. This is a big one. Huyu jamani nimemjua miaka mengi.
Yes.
Although sasa yeye ni title
mbaya.
But sasa inaweza sema anajuana na watu wa serious town.
I'll see.
Yes.
Is your design to introduce mtu wangu hapa mbunge tajika yani kutoka maeneo ya Dago. Unajua uko pia ni hood mtu wangu. So na feel honored yani. Anajulikana kama the one and only KJ. Drum rolls.
Shukran bro. And thanks so much for having me bana.
Thank you.
Hey maze kuketea hii bench pia ni honor. We're in the presence of greatness. Maze title ndani ya hii industry. Feel tumetoka naye mbali sana.
Yes.
And I know Nairobi, Kenya mna recognize mtu wangu Igunza. Maze the language master. Magana kurorokelea yote. Alafu voice too.
Tunakipenda kuona against.
Ndio hiyo.
Tuna give thanks yani.
Asante.
Unajua ni funny venye life inaweza turn around. Ubazenga akianzia shughuli zake mimi nakumbuka nikimuona 1999. Akifanya Redykyulass tukiona kwa movie zile za Dago kwa msee alikuwa anaitwa Saika, DJ Saika na Benjamin akimimic politicians. Little did he know that one day pia atakuja kuwa politician. Dreams inakuanga valid ama bidii ndio inahitajika.
Man, kitu nimelearn kwa hii life ni ati si uenda through Sunday school, tunaenda through church, tunaenda through chuo bila kufundishwa what prayer is. Mazee vile una grow ndio una realize prayer sio ile kitu ulitichiwa ni prayer. Prayer sio kneel down na kuongea na God 5 minutes in a day, alafu 23 hours and 55 minutes uko vitu zako. Nimekam kurealize prayer ni ile predominant thought. Ile thought utasustain kwa akili yako, hiyo ndio prayer. Na hiyo prayer ina get answered. So unacheki Redykyulass ilikuwa ni agitation. Ilikuwa yenyewe ni mapambano. Ilikuwa ni si tukicall out zile ills ziko kwa governance. Na because tulikuwa too engaged kwa hiyo story, ilikuwa ni in the political sphere. Tulikuwa tunaelekeza kidole, tulikuwa tunakashifu, tulikuwa tuna critique. So life ukishaomba kitu waga inapewa 100%. So sasa ndio sisi tumeputiwa hiyo in your position. Wewe ulikuwa una critique, hebu tuone na wewe uko aje. Na ndio kwa maana unakuta the fact that tuli engage so intensely, tuli immerse so deeply, unakuta hiyo prayer imejiansa. Mimi ni ule mse unaweza ita the most unlikely candidate kuwa politician. Mi tulikuwa na feel kwa newsroom, nilikuwa nachora cartoon.
Nakumbuka
head on Corrision. Nilianza hiyo nikiwa Dago High School. Nikiwa form 3 hiyo head on Corrision ndio ilikuwa nilistep up ikakuwa Redykyulass bado kwa hiyo sphere ya politics. Ile prayer yangu ilikuwa ni aje tunaweza get a better way of doing things, especially at a higher level. Wale wasi wamepewa responsibility kuwa wanawajibika. So hiyo ikakuwa ni prayer. Mimi nilikuwa najua gasiezi ingia elective politics. Feel anajua. Hiyo ni kitu tulikuwa tushaongea na watu, maboy walikuwa najua, wife alikuwa najua, mimi siwezi ingia elective politics. But because predominantly maybe kwa thought ilikuwa gani hiyo story ya governance na leadership na service, mimi nilijikuta tu jibata kwa siasa man. So ile responsibility inakuwa higher. Ndio unaona mazetu tunajitahidi vile tunajitahidi Dago, we are stretching the shilling tukipewa kitu ku oversight. We make sure we stretch it to its limit. Tuna deliver over and above. Tuna make sure tumepewa responsibility ya representation. Mimi ule mse akosangi bunge. Iwe ni debate gani ama debate gani, wase wangu wanani expect niwe pale kwa floor nikichangia. Iwe ni debate light, ikuwe ni debate hard, ikuwe ni vote inatekiwa. Mimi si wale wase wa kwenda kujificha kwa choo. Sasa vote ngumu inakam. Lazima nda make decision na iende on record nime make decision.
Head on coalition.
So ndio mse alikuwa na agitate kwa Redykyulass. Sasa ndio huyo mse ako kwa platform ya molingo ya siasa.
Na ni amazing.
Yes.
Kuna mahali umetaja mapambano. Si ndio?
Yes.
Uko form 3. Uko na uwezo wa kuchora, you are an artist, umejua me almighty ameni bless na uwezo wa kuchora. Ukatoa wapi hiyo boldness ya kusema ndatumia power ya pen yangu pia kupusha agenda ya society? Na ulikuwa una capture a lot of things. Mambo ya tabia mbaya kwa barabara, mambo ya shule, politics hapa na kule, vitu kama hizo. How did you know uko na hiyo fire? Na ulikuwa unafanyaje yani when those ideas come to you mpaka unacheki hii lazima niweke kwa paper?
Ya first ni vile una come up kwa hizo formative stages. Nili grow around consciousness. Wase wa conscious, wase wana call out ills kwa society, wase wako bold enough to stand up against establishments. So mzae wa mi alikuwa kwa politics, lakini hao ni wale wase walikuwa gama leftist. So sale walipata opportunity on the national platform, au walianza kuagitate for change, na walianza kuagitate wakiwa watu wa young sana. But they paid the price. Juu ni wase wako na principle, walikuwa na principles uncompromisable. And for it they paid the price. So nikigrow up maze, arrests zilikuwa order of the day, intimidation ilikuwa order of the day. Mzae ni mtu wa kukuja na chotwa kwa hao, akichotwa maze amjui atarudi lini. Pengine aanze ame sign ka check, ameachia mother, ndio ile siku tu atatokea maze at least vitu zikuwe zinaendelea. Ni msee wa kupoisoniwa maze akiagitate. So una grow kwa hiyo environment, una observe hizo ills kwa society. And then wakawa ni mapero wanatuelau kudu ile kitu mtu anaweza pasu. So kwa family kuna wase walipasu ma engineering, wengine wakakuwa ma artist and so on. So kupick up hizi early influences nika realize maze naweza chora. But I was shocked when I went to school kukuta wase hawajui kuchora. So juu mimi nilikuwa nadhani ni natural. Bana. And when I was starting out, by the way, nilikuwa ambidextrous. Kwa nachora na mkono zote mbili. Na observe ma big bro vile wanachora. Maze unachora. So as I was growing up, nika realize bana ni kitu stinging kuput a critique on paper. So unaanza ukiwa mless, primo, wachora mabeshte wako, mnacheka. By the time you're getting to high school, unaanza saa kuchora mapiri kwa chuo. Unaanza kuwa persona non grata kwa machuo zingine. Pengine ulichora head boy wa chuo fulani, ukaeka kwa magazine na kwa ninoma. Nika realize hii kitu, power iko na pen iko na power. So by third form nilikuwa nimeperfect hiyo skill ya kuchora cartoon. Nili walk up to studios za Nation, newspapers. Nikiwa form 3, April holidays. Kaambia wase bana, mimi nadhani niko na talent na naweza like kuwa cartoonist wa Nation. Waze newsroom ili burst out ikicheka bana. Wase walicheka. So lakini kuna mtu alikuwa kwa kona kwa hiyo studio. Kwa kona akasema maze, wacha tupe huyu kijana chance. Tuone anaweza do nini. So ule editor alisema huyu kijana tutampea article 3 wiki 3, 3 Sundays. Atupe articles za wiki 3. If the audiences appreciate it, tutamweka regular. Maze I gave it my best bana. Nika submit cartoons 3. Reaction ikakuwa almost immediate. Siku hizo wako kwa social media, newspaper ya Sunday ilikuwa ndio Facebook, ndio Twitter, ndio TikTok. Hapo ndio kila kitu ina trend. So mimi nimepack ma trending topics kwa hii article moja. Ilikuwa inaitwa Head on Corrision with the Youth. Nimepack ma topics hapo ndani. Youth ika react. Wakani on board. So I went on to be the guy with the column Head on Corrision. Ikawa the longest running youth column kwa history ya hii Nation. Nikawa kwa Young Nation for 12 years. In fact, hata nilitoka Young Nation, Sale alikuwa naenda siasa. Tuka have conversation na unse.
He was there, so we were kind of friends and everything else. Nakumbuka ukiniambia unafikiria politics, I'm like, you can see there is a political angle to him.
Yes.
But me seeing him as a politician. Exactly. So even the first time, like, wakatulijaribu and then you failed the first one.
Yes.
I remember at that point, at one point, tunaangalia toko, uko sure na hii kitu. Akasema, ni sawa. Hii miaka 5 itaenda tu.
Yes.
Next,
Ndani.
You're right.
Nakumbuka hata ukituita, you call us for a fundraiser.
Yes.
Somewhere around 2 hapa.
Under the radar.
Yes,
your time. Na yo mazee uigunza yani trust to my bitch.
Like, I showed up there, naona watu wako hapo niko, this is actually serious. Like, you're like, because you're seeing the people wameita, niko, I know you're famous, but you don't think like these people would literally
show up for you
and everything else. I remember even when you assaulted during the release.
The campaigns.
Tuka ODM.
Tukachukua matatu zetu. We are wearing them proudly. Mazee hizo ni badges of honor.
Yes.
But as Philip is saying, sale nilikuwa naita wasee naambia mazee tuna want kudu hii kitu. Kuna wasee hawakuwa wana believe ati tuko kwa hii story. So ni mabeliever tu walikuwa na show up. Wale wasee wana believe.
That's what it takes.
A young kid bana is going up against a very senior established minister.
Comedian, not just a young kid. Mtu wako sasa wewe jokes unapeleka.
Na unataka kitu. In fact, how I got into politics ndio ilikuwa inanipea hiyo push. Juu sasa hiyo ile flag tulikuwa tunabeba ilikuwa flag moja ya tuseme ilikuwa generational.
Yeah.
So wase wa generation yetu hata ndio walini push into elective politics. We were straight out of Vijana Tugutuke. Vijana Tugutuke ilikuwaga arguably the best organized, most effective youth movement in Kenya's history to date.
Ilinyorosha paka ya kina Orezo ile ya 92.
Oh, boss. That was a movement. Vijana tulikuwa wasetu wa entertainment industry. Tuko na networks, wasekaki na feel wako kwa gazeti wanaandika, tuna wase wako kwa TV, wengine wako kwa radio, wengine wanaduma vitu, and we said as young people sisi ndio tuko na influence wale wase wako kwa entertainment. At that time young people were nowhere. Hawako kwa governance table, hawako kwa decision making. The only young people who are having an impact ni wale walikuwa kwa entertainment industry. We got together bana, tukasema we'll have to be involved one way or the other. That time hata hatuna ambitions political. We just want to onboard the young people kwenye decision making. And we started out a movement. I remember the first thing we did was a campaign called Jazalori. Jazalori was at a time like this. Kulikuwa na yani anga, kuna hanga, and no one was responding. Kuna njaa kila mahali. Tukasema juu wase wako na kajina kidogo, wacha tuitane tudu kitu. So there was Redykyulass, ka founders wa hii kitu, kulikuwa na wase wanaitwa True Black, Big Kev. Tukaanza conversation. And I remember I sketched the Jazalori logo. Tukiwa mahali kwa restaurant, tuna have tu nili sketch kwa kasaviet. Movement ikazaliwa. Hiyo Jazalori ilikuwa gani foods drive. So kamse ako na jina. We had some amazing guys, Nameless, Wahoo, Red Sun, Jua Kali, Nonini, Amani, name them. Say tunaingia kwa supermarket. Msiaki kuona kwa supermarket lazima atastop. Ugunza nini. Unamwambia sawa. Maze. So what you do when you're doing your shopping, buy an extra bag of unga. Or buy an extra bag of sugar. Or some dry proteins, beans, nini. Outside the supermarkets, tunaseti malori. Wase wanajaza hizo lori. The movement was so successful. By the time tulikuwa na pause kuthink, tulikuwa na malori hata hatujui tunaweza do nini. Tunapeleka hiyo dishi kwa mageto, tunaingia Ungwaro, tunaingia hizi masekta, Kibra, Mukuru. Tukadistribute dishi, and it was so much. It got to a point we couldn't manage it ourselves. So we had a conversation with Red Cross. Red Cross wakaleta matracks, ndio hao tunaingia makantonzwe nini. Jazalori ikakuwa ni movement. Tukatumia hiyo technique could even mobilize more food. Tukaitisha concert ilikuwa Nyayo Stadium. Nyayo Stadium bana, the biggest names in entertainment were on stage for that concert. Alafu hype mazina hypiwa. So wase wanaambiwa kuingia hii concert to watch these big names, price iko juu sana. A bag of unga. Ukikamna unga unaingia. Wase wakachanga maunga bana, tukaanza kuzipeleka kila mahali. So out of that tuka realize this generation actually iko na voice. The same format tukai use sasa for voter registration. So we took, it was called the mother of all road shows. Tukapeleka concert around the 42 Moi districts. Back then in the old Katiba, 42 districts. We would make a stop. Aze unatukuta uko Mbale, unatukuta Lamu, unatukuta Garissa. Tuna mobilize mavijana wanaja kwa steady. But ndio kijana ingi hapo, akuwe na voters card. Voters card. Tukaita vijana tugutuke. So hiyo movement bana ilikuwa gani? Crash course in civic education. Mavijana, peers. We were just talking to our age mates. The movement was so successful. We registered directly 2.5 million new voters. In fact, in our last rally, I remember it was 28th May 2007. The last rally ilikuwa hapa Nairobi, Uhuru Park. First of all, bana tumepark steady. At that time, no one could believe young people can do something for themselves. No politicians, no one who's not youth is allowed there. Tuko hapa Uhuru Park. The ECK chairman, IEBC at your time, Kivwitu, had to show up. Alikama kasema, hey, by the way, come to think of it, you guys have occasioned a revolution. For the first time in Kenya's history, there were more young voters than older voters. Tukatilt balance ya power. Movement ya youth ikazaliwa. I remember we were running as young people. Hatukuwa na want politicians kwa functions zetu. Hatukuwa na want influence ya politics. I remember there is a rally we held in Nakuru. Packed bana. Packed. Tulikuwa Nakuru steady. One politician had their young people in Nakuru. Wazee alichukua chopa kutoka Nairobi. Msia kaland. A concert. Alinikuta stage. It was none other than H.E. Emeritus Uhuru Kenyatta. Alikuwa minister hiyo time. Na yeye ndio alikuwa youthful kwa gavana nini. Akanikuta stage. Wazee politely nikamwambia, by the way, hii story ni ya mavijana. Na ukiwa hapa you either an entertainer ama wewe ni audience. Hapa hakuna speeches. So wewe unataka kudance ama kuimba ama wewe umekam nini? Sasa akatuambia anataka kuimba, tukamchezea Mogithi, akacheza Mogithi hapo, akachukua chopa akaenda. Fully youth run movement. So it was after vijana tugutuke. Wasee walisema mazee, wewe ndio umekuwa una ladies initiatives on stage, MC nini? Which the constituency you go to, si tutakusupport. Ndio tukue na voice yetu pale ndani. But it was out of pressure. Juu vijana tugutuke ilikuwa inaambia vijana, chukua voters card, know how to use it, and then participate.
The electoral process.
Tukaulizwa bana, nyinyi mnaambia watu wa participate, who among you is running? Wase wakaingia mitini wala, akasema huyu msee ndio tunarusha kwa wazee nikarushwa depend.
Because that's the point when I think it was you, there was Mudomobagi, Kajairo. Kuna point at celebrities will decide tunaingia politics.
That was 07. It was 07. But they didn't even decide to go into politics. They were pushed into politics. But the entertainment industry was so vibrant then. Because you remember the guys on the platform then. You know, you're talking about really aggressive go-getters. Ogopa DJs was a camp. Caliph Records was a camp. Alafu kulikuwa na tukamp tuingine tudogo tulikuwa tuna emerge. Pale South C kulikuwa na vitu tuna happen. South B kuna vitu zina happen. East Lando vitu zina happen. And then we are coming out of platform ya K-Shaka. K-Shaka, K-South Flavor wameduma maneno. And then new voices are coming up. Kina Sanaipei Tande. That time they are coming up with a new sound. Wazee wamekama hapo wakiwa such an organized pop star. you know, a proper product.
Yeah.
They are well packaged. Wakona what you'd call corporate backing. Wanapitishwa process ya production through homeboys. Maze wanachomwa album bana. Unacheza track 1 to ya mwisho. Maze ni stima zote.
Yeah.
Around that time, it was actually in the lead up to that we also now starting to learn about life. Jumaze unaget jina kubwa bana, unakuwa larger than life.
Yeah.
Then when you're in all this glory, maze mnagongwa na tragedy bana. Mnasikia maze wasee wakitoka show Nax. Mnasikia Nameless na Isa wamerol na gari pale Elementaita maze. And then naongea na Nameless kwa simu maze, ananiambia tulikuwa kwa gari na Isa, but Isa did not make it. Maze mnakuwa humbled Wajua wase walikuwa wamekam na you know you feel larger than life bana. Ukiangalia ile force wase walikuwa wamekam now, even the attitude, wase walikuwa na attitude ingine go getter. Wase red sun, bigger than you can imagine. Hungry kids out of the caliph stable. Very hungry to do stuff. Your time tena kuna kana ground kalikuwa kana happen. Very conscious stuff maze. Ukiingia Dandora hiyo time,
Dandora hip hop city, hapo ndio napata Juliani walikuwa wameanza kuvutwa.
Juliani sasa hiyo ni mtoi. He's a really young kid freestyling banana freestyle vibaya sana. Soon after that bana wakaingia kwa project fulani. Walipiga project moja ilikuwa inaitwa
Dandora Burning.
There was Dandora Burning, but before that there was a serious project they got on to. Why would I forget maze? Hiyo ndio ili propel Juliani. Ilikuwa a compilation CD. Artists wengi sana kwa hiyo. How would I forget it? It was a red album. I'll remember. If I remember, I'll throw it in there. A beautiful album. Walikuwa wameleta mpaka wasee kutoka US. Yes. Elnes, you know.
All over the world.
All over the world. Ilikuwa kwa hiyo album. Elnes na yeye pia tulikuwa na history na yeye from another angle. Elnes kilio cha haki. Kilio cha haki was the album. Maze, make a point to listen to that album today.
No, it's steam, man.
Maze, ile album ilikuwa fire. So basically, it was all this that now culminated in Vijana Tugutuke, and then threw us into politics. Tulikuwa na, we were so structured. At that time, we were agitating only for 3 things as a generation. We wanted a youth ministry, we wanted a youth fund, and I wanted a National Youth Council. And to our credit, by the way, tulitik zote. Tulitik hizo boxes. By the time Bwana Kibaki administration ina come up, ilikuwa inabidi maze tu containiwe na system. Nasema mavijana ile mbio wamekam nayo. Maze mpaka propaganda zinaekwa ati these guys are sponsored by international powers. They are here to overthrow the government.
But why?
Of course not. We were not subversive. But our message was so clear. We were just saying that there has to be a country that offers opportunity to everyone. Maze tukasukuma hiyo kitu. Then we came with a force into politics. KJ ameingia Dago, cause the upset of the century.
Kuna ile ndio ulifukuzwa kwa stage.
Ameenda kuinterfere kwa mkutano ya CS.
Ilikuwa crazy bana, you know.
Nini ilifanya first of all ukaamua Dago?
Dago is home. It's where I've been born, I've been brought up. It's a place I know. Nimezaliwa hapo, nimegrow hapo, nimesomea hapo. So hiyo ndio mtaa imenilea.
Hapo tangu enzi za kina Gashanja.
Bana. Actually earlier. When I was born, the MP was the Honorable Dr. Njoroge Mungai. Sasa hiyo Dago ilikuwa massive bana, ilikuwa ina expand mpaka huko unaona West. Hiyo ilikuwa big hivyo. So hii ndio mtaa ilinilea, and it was also organic. Jisala niliingia mtaani nikasema naomba kura.
Huu ni wetu.
Mazi you would be shocked bana. Hiyo campaign iliraniwa na mavijana. Unaona maboy wako kwa ma football teams au wamejitolea kwa networks. They got us to every single neighborhood. Kuna click wa gasiezi sahau. Wase wa Rodi, wase wa Ruti, na wase wa Vinyozi. Because immediately after high school, kwa hustle hiyo, nilikuwa nimeanza hustle ya mastika. Kuuza mastika za mama tatu na mastika za vinyozi. So hiyo ndio ilikuwa imenipea name mtaani. Nilikuwa naona
tunauza ama pia wewe ndio ulikuwa na generate
na design sticker, mastika conscious zinapigwa ki graphics hivi, zinapigwa kwa mama tatu, mastika kali sana, and they used to be handmade. Alafu sasa mimi nazi pedal mimi mwenyewe. Mimi natembea mtaani Ungwaro, nilikuwa najua Ungwaro vizuri juu mother yani for many years alikuwa na operate hapo kwa hiyo soko ya Ungwaro. Iko time alikuwa na bring ma produce sana pale. So hizo network za Ungwaro sasa nilisema nasimama. Sasa unakuta wasee wamejitolea tu. Wanasema maze ukijana tunamjua organically ni wetu. Msee wa Ruti juu hizo time maze ukiwa wasee wakikuwa appreciate wasee wa Ruti kuna pigishwa ma squad. So kulikuwa gana manganya zilikuwa zinaitwa kina dreams hiyo time. Kulikuwa kuna sijui hot sijui what maze unakuwa msee tu wa Ruti. So when I said I'm vying organically sina dosa hiyo, we were able to pull an Obama before Obama pulled an Obama. We pulled an Obama in 07. Mali yani campaign ni on foot. Mali opponent akona convoy ya gari, so uko na wase so mnatembea mtaani tu. Maze sensitization, yani message ilikuwa conscious but ilikuwa radical pia.
Lakini uli 13 when now you tried.
Yes.
And it was unsuccessful. Of course you unasemanga kuna vitu zilifanyika. Mazingaombwe na kila kitu. What did you learn from that so that 5 years later you are ready? Because 20 is it 20 when
no, what happened Phil? I ran in 2007.
Yes, so
07
not successful. 2013 ukacheki.
07 I was 20 something. Nilikuwa kijana tu tukarun hiyo campaign na kuambia. But it was so fruitful because in 07 when the votes were in out of all our stations kura imehesabiwa tumewin. In fact all the votes are in. Tushashinda. We were coming to the tallying center for tallying, announcement na certificate. In fact even the media called it. You know, stations started calling it. KBC called it, Citizen called it, and TV called it. KJ amechukua.
In the process ya kusafirisha sasa ziende tallying center.
Simu zilianza kutembea mazi. Kijana ameangusha mama. Kijana ameangusha mama, zikaingia kwa network. Hiyo election ya 07 ilikuwa mbaya. Already kulikuwa kuna nuka war. Kulikuwa kuna nuka war. So maze 27th night returning officer kakata kutali. 28th noma. 29 ikakuwa wata-announce bila kutali. So they wanted to announce the opponent. Maze ikakuwa ni war. Wacha katembeswa kwa tallying. Kali tembeswa. Sisi tulionaga tu first mablue wameland. Mablue wakaland wakapigwa reinforcement ya MAP. Kidogo tukaona manjege wameingia sasa proper. Wase wa mabakuli. Maze tuliwekelewa. Si tumekatalia tallying center. By the way tulilalia mabox. Tumelalia mabox hivi juu tunajua hii ni win yetu. Iko ndani ya box. Maze tulitandikwa. Maze mimi naona Chief agent alikuwa Governorati. Mimi naona Governorati anarukia fence huko bana, anapotelea kibi chuko. Tuko tallying center tumekelewa. Eventually tukafika 31st. Sasa tumehold fort mazi. At least tumeweza kuhold fort. Bana, but give it to wase wakiamini juu ile siafu ilikuwa pale. Mazi walisema mazi ni haki yetu na tunaidefend. On 31st nakumbuka ilikuwa kajioni hivi. It was a very gloomy evening. Mazi tukasikia tu Kibaki ametangazwa mazi. State House.
Upside down.
Mali tulikuwa Kenya Science. Nilisikia tu nduru kutoka side ya Kibich. Ashrik. Nduru zilitoka Kibira. Na hii side nyingine Ungwaro nduru. Literally Kenya went up in flames spontaneously. On that announcement Kenya ikaban wazi. Hivyo ndio election yetu ya 07 ilienda. To date the election of Dagoretti constituency ya 2007 haijaitangazwa.
Mpaka wa leo.
Law usemaga it should be legally announced at the gazetted tallying center. To date, election ya 07 ya Dago, December 07 haijaitangazwa.
Na hivyo ndio litupwa nje.
Lasa, I was telling you the youth movement was too strong. It was coming. Do you know, out of that victory, the persecution that followed. Na wakufichi, news kia kuna stories naitagwa ma system, manini, very well entrenched and bent.
Uliona system mukati.
Sisi tunajaribu kwenda kotini ati ma petition. Wale tuliambiwa gwa tu outright. Tuliambiwa we will impoverish you. We will never run for any office in this country. And we were condemned to the wilderness for 10 years. Tuliweza kuinua kichwa 2017.
Yes.
Politically tulikuwa kwa desert for 10 years. So Phila nauliza what is the lesson?
Tulikuwa ni nani na nani?
Man, ilikuwa ilienda down na wasee wengi sana. Ilienda down na wasee wengi sana. Ukiangalia wale maagitator walikuwa hiyo time, very few made it out of your persecution. In fact, new dynamics were introduced. Around that time ndio unaona dynamic ya mseka Sonko ikikam. A very different approach to youth politics. In fact, the Sonko approach, I dare say this, na ni mse wangu baze boy wa maana sana. Hujaiona mtu ana roho mzuri ka Sonko. But the Sonko dynamic actually got us out of the trajectory ile tulikuwa tumetake. You know, we had come up with a very revolutionary message. We were changing the direction. And in fact, we were talking about a generational takeover.
Yes.
The approach the Sonko approach came with, in a way vilified the youth movement. Wazee wanaangalia wanasema, hii kai ndio youth leadership. Wazee kidogo, So in a way, but to his credit, Sonko na yeye alikuja na impetus mpya. Ali bring swag mpya kwa politics, ali bring power mpya, and then he brought some good influence. Ali open up doors zingine sasa for another generation. But Phil asks, what's the lesson? Ile take out tulitoka nayo 07 ilikuwa moja na ilikuwa simple, that this is not a walk in walk out. Ukiangalia, if it was a generational struggle, if there are generations that came before us, the Mau Mau had a price to pay. Then they paid a very heavy price. Generation ile ingine ya youth ilikuwa young tax. In the late 80s, early 90s, you know, your Orengos, your Martha Karoas, your Raila Odingas, your Enjoyers, your Ruto
later.
Shikuku, sorry.
And very many other unsung heroes. You know, you're talking about the Bahamaris of this world. You're talking about the Anyonas, and it was a proper movement. Even they had to pay a price.
Yes.
But they sustained it.
Even Mwite.
And Mwite was leading light. Ni vile tu hatuwezi drop maname zote, but wako hapo, they were leading lights in their time. So the lesson we took out, for Mau Mau to be able to succeed, it was not a walkout.
Yes.
They were consistent, they were disciplined, they were sustained the pressure.
Yes.
The second generation team ya Young Tax, wali sustain your pressure, boss, because you can imagine it was born right after independence, but they kept the pressure going. So hata sisi hiyo time unatuona sasa ndio tunatolewa kwa stage ile time. That time we have already been pulled out of the we've already been wameshachukua kiti yetu. But tunasema mazee hatuwezi toka. Wase wamekupea kura, wanakuuliza wewe kura yako tulikupea. Uliuza kura ama ulidu nini wewe? So mazee una sustain your pressure. And for 10 years Igunza, unaweza uliza wase wa Dago, for 10 years kuanzia 07 tulikatalia grau. It didn't matter ka tuko na kakitu ama hatuna kakitu. Tuko kwa hiyo fabric ya community. We are doing everything and anything we can do. So that by 2017, when the votes were cast, vile God work. Mazi unaona nika unarudishiwa zile kura zote ushaibiwa mazi. Mazi walileta kitu ingine ujaiona mazi. Wakatupea hiyo mandate. So we got into office with a very good mandate. And so we had to deliver. So your first term, tukaenda tukaform foundation. And by the time we were done with the first 5 years, you know, we had gone and done what you see, being told about Dagoretti.
And now being part of the status quo in terms of a politician now. Now you have people now who are also now agitating.
Yes.
Who are now saying, of course there's a politician. Kuna mtu anasema huyu afanyangi kazi, huyu anafanya kazi. So how do you marry that? And how unaweza jipatia out of 10 on how you've delivered? Performance yako unaweza ipatia ngapi mpaka saa hii? Where you literally look somebody hata kwa grau kienda utasema tuongee tu kweli, this was here like this. Do you think you've done exactly what you wanted, or how would you rank yourself? And what would you say now for people now who are now agitating, now not through cartoons, now on social media? Yeah.
Well, the truth is, and Phil, and you've been part of this journey. The one thing I'm not quite sure is whether I can make a good politician. Hata sijuagi kama nishaikuwa politician. Juu politics ndio uonekana, but kwa history kuna factors zingine. Kuna leadership, na kuna service. And maybe those are the parameters that we should be measuring people on. How are you doing with leadership? How are you doing with service? So we got a mandate, and the first mandate was 5 years. When we landed in Dago, we were called Team Change. And we crystallized change into one thing, that if people don't change, there's no way the society will change. There's no way the community will change, which is the biggest agent for change. For us, we know, you know, consciousness ndio the biggest agent for change. So tukaona consciousness system wapi? Kwanzia machuo, how the child is formed, hivyo ndio atakuja kukua. Mawe tuliingia na kitu inaitwa the radical reconstruction. Ya machuo ndani ya Dago. So by the time I was doing my first term, we had renovated all our primary schools, for example. And ours was not just renovation, ati unapaka rangi nini, it was reconstruction. You know the story. When I was getting into Dago, our schools, primary schools, were condemned as unfit for human occupation. Una shred down chuo, unabakisha tu kishell kia mawe kimesimama. Una reconstruct maze, una equip, una fit, una furnish. Ma floors mi wana ma MP wakieka ma tiles. To me, I think it's dangerous to put tiles in a classroom. Unachimba hiyo floor, unaeka terrazzo. 20 years guarantees, 30 years guarantees. Even when KJ is gone, hiyo chuo bado itakuwa iko fiti. Maprimo zote zikarudi. After that, tunajiuliza transition. Mimi nikipeana basari naona machecks zinaenda St. Mary's Yala, zingine zinaenda Star of the Sea, zingine zinaenda Gatanga CCM. Najiuliza hii ni resource ya Dago. Why can't we retain it here? So in the first 5 years, we have established 5 new high schools in Dago. Mpaka wase wa Dago najiuliza hii CDF kwani ilikuwa inaenda wapi? But even more importantly, things that are such soft issues. As we speak today, Dagoretti South Constituency is the only constituency in Kenya with a comprehensive school feeding program. Tulienda hiyo chuo. And everyone was trying to do it. They're modeling it against the Dagoretti model. How did we do it? Hub and spoke model. Tukaingia pale Mokarara Primary, right in the heart of Dagoretti South Constituency, tukajenga kitchen, a CDF kitchen. Out of that CDF kitchen, food inaanza kupikwa very early in the morning. By 11:30 food is ready. Inapakiwa kwa heat container, thermo containers to all our primary schools. Today as we speak, 17,000 lunches are being served out of this kitchen. On a daily. Every day. Nice. Tuna serve chuo zetu public. We have now started in a place like Gando, Mali public schools aziko, hata tunapeana ma private schools. We're even feeding neighboring constituencies. Dagoretti North, kuna dishi tunapeleka huko, Kabete tunapeleka dishi huko as they prepare their kitchens. But even more importantly, even as we are educating, how do we bring up then a whole person? So effort maze, tunakuanga hizo machuo, yani tunapush, yani ni chuo yetu. But the Bible inasema you shall know them by their fruits. Unaona academics zina rise, unaona attitudes zina change.
Consciousness, wanakuwa aware
extracurricular. Dago saini national champions soccer. Dago ni national champions basketball. Dago ni national champions drama. National champions rugby. Si ndio represent Kenya. So basically we put in the work. And that is just in education. Ukiingia security the same. Machifu wetu tulishawatoa kwa mabati. Wasavu watu kwa place dignified. Unaenda unakuta our biggest police station when I was getting in was a mabati kibanda at Reruta. Unaenda tunastrike kibanda. We build an ultra modern story Reruta police station. Ukicheki footprint yetu ya development pale Dago, of course Rome was never built in a day. But we are rolling out, carpet after carpet of roads.
Unatoka all the way kutoka Seti mpaka Ndonyo.
Unajua hiyo story sasa, but most importantly, that is development. But the MP is constitutionally mandated to represent, to oversight, and to legislate. Ukikampale bunge, uoni MP yakosangi sessions. We in our first term, it was Speaker Muturi who singled us out as one of the most astute debaters in Parliament. When I was a first termer, I was a backbencher. So you're putting in what you have made. Kani representation, tuna represent. Kani legislation, tuko hapo kwa miswada, tuko hapo kwa ma-petition, tuko hapo kwa ma-statement, tuko hapo kwa bring ma new bills, ma acts. Hatusahau ile industry tulitoka. We've been part of bringing up legislation that speaks to this industry. Not less than 4 solid laws zimekam out of the effort tumeput zina help industry ya entertainment na emerging technologies na media. So I'm not the one to rate myself on a scale of 1 to 10. But the Dagoretti South people had an opportunity. Kambe waretini umse wenyu, and I think wakakubali umse anatia job, and they gave us a second term. So kitembea Dago nilikuwa nasikia wakisema za Kiarie ni 5 sema ngumi ni mbwekse. So wakatupea hii second opportunity. Hiyo ndio nasikia wakiita divai ya Kiarie. The second wine was sweeter than the first wine. Divai ya pili sahi.
So if I can go back, you mentioned, of course, growing up, consciousness and everything else, but also on a personal issue, like you're what, 7th born? Are you the last born? You are 8.
Yes, we are 8 boys.
You're 4th born, sorry.
Yeah, I'm a 4th born.
You're the 4th born. And so growing up was also not necessarily rosy. Your dad was anashinda akikuwa haunted hivi. On the other side, the mother, your mom, bless her soul and everything else, and also your dad, rest his soul, pole sana. So growing up, especially with your mom, were you like 8 months or is it 8 weeks when she died?
Well, it's true, we were born, we are 8 boys.
Yes.
Mazee mzae si mwita lion mazee. Ule ni lion mazee. Title sana. The lion rested May 9th. Yeah. Of course, grief untold mazee. No one prepares you for the loss of a parent. But we were 8 of us. I was the 4th born. I would never tell how old I was when my birth mama passed on at Asijuagi. And then we got the mom who brought us up. This most amazing lady who was able to bring up 8 boys. Mazena wasewa turn out just fine. She did a brilliant job. She was this most amazing mother. Of course, uskia story sijui my stepmother nini. This was, I never had a stepmom. I had a mom. Mother to bring up vizuri sana. But it is not a life you would want your children to come up in. It was rough. Misikia wase wakisema KJ mzai wa KJ alikuwa MP, KJ ni dynasty. Boss, let me tell you bana, growing up in that family, ilikuwa when the system came down on you that time, they really did. Uni mzai mazee alikuwa mehantiwa down. and they hunt you down to even your businesses.
Yeah.
They cripple you, paralyze you. So mnajikuta maze, the only meal available kwa hayo hao at some point ni uji ya white. Haina sugar, haina nini.
Yes.
Yani it was a tough upbringing. So we saw the very high highs and we saw the very low lows. It is not a life I would want any child to come up in.
Yes.
But in the same breath, it made men out of us. Men out of us, because you would find that now you are a bit more engaged in school, because unaona chuo ikiwa more comfortable than home. Yes. So mimi nilikuwa gaule mse dago mazee wasa kienda half term. Naona mazee wacha nibaki tu chuo. It's more comfortable here.
Let's see far sana
kutoka home. Mko 8 kwa hivyo mtu ajijali. The last time nilivisitiwa ni ile siku nilidropiwa chuo. So hiyo ndio vizo ya mwisho. But even in all that context, it was such a loving family. We had a dad and a mom. They're educators. Both of them come from an education background. They were so wise in their upbringing that they were able to get out the right character out of each and every one of the 8 boys. And the love was immense, but it's a big, loving, warm family. One of the best things maybe we picked out of that family was the humor. Yes. I don't know which of the 2 parents was so humorous, but I think even the grandparents were also good storytellers. So maybe that's where the folks picked it up from. But maze grow up na maboy, wajua fast, ile guo koikoyo hao ni noma sana. Wase wanagusana tu vizuri. Alafu humor wasema ze, kila mtu akona nickname yake, kila mtu akona joke, internal joke huko. So very early on, one of the biggest thing I picked out of the love and the warmth out of that very difficult situation was humor. And humor is beautiful escape. Yes. Was a place in a humor hata amuonagi hizo manoma. So that was us growing up. Nice. Yes.
Na watu wamezoea kukuwa na masis, you have sisters, you have maybe aunties around you. I'm looking at this family as a family with only one female, who's the mom, and maybe most of the time we realize ako shughuli pia anawatafutia. So ilikuangaje household chores? Kuna mavyombo zinafaa kuoshwa, mkoro hajafika, kuna wazao wanafaa kusosi, of course kuna the elder one, kuna the last born.
Ni noma. We mazeo, alafu unajua there's something about women. Mother akiwa kwa hao maze, kuna kawa mtu kwa pale. So hii ni hao ya maboy. We jua tu hata waseo wanaweza forget hata kufunga curtains. Giza ina land, waseo walishata forget kufunga curtains mpaka mother akam akumbushe waseo drawing hizi curtains. But vile wale to bring up, because there's a time it got so difficult. The family could not even afford a help. And things were so difficult, you know, the mid-80s coming to the 90s. I remember there are times when mom had to go to work and she has a newborn child and the decision has to be made. So there are brothers that I brought up. Yes. Unakuta we unaambiwa we leo juu mother lazima ende job, wende unabaki na mtoi.
When did you?
Yeah, that was young, but they're very early morning memories. I would remember maybe I was in lower primary. You know, you're talking standard 4, 5. Yes. Because the chores have to be done. Yes. Maybe wanaona umse pengine akikosa chuo yeye ndio hakuna kitu kubwa ita happen. So kani kubeba mtoi kwa mgongo, tumebeba prepare hizo machakula za watoi unaifanya. Of course vyombo ni nyinyi mtaosha, kwa hiyo hao una learn kucook mapema. Juka unarudi chuo na una want chapo mzae. Hakuna mtu atakuja hapo ati anakupikia hizo machapo. Wewe ujue tu kuspin hapo kwa tu ka DJ pale machapo zako. So growing up, maybe the good thing that came out of it is silver lining, responsibility. So much so that when I got out into the world, na natafuta kulearn computers, and I walk into this company, and I know my parents can't afford to pay for me the computer course, I walked into this company and I said, boss, mi nataka kulearn computers. This amazing gentleman by the name of Harun Washira told me, come, utawak, badala ya tukupe salary, we utakuwa na wako huko. But then unarushwa depend. So at Diamond System, I started out msewa duster, kumop floor huko, kuwipe my desk. So cause of vile background nimekam nayo, sioni ikiwa kitu kubwa. Mimi narushwa tu hapo, mimi na mop yangu, nini. But you do it so good that in a few months, wanaona huyu mse tunaweza trust. I was a young kid straight out of school. Wanaona huyu mse anaweza trustiwa, unapewa ka job ka messenger, mse wa kwenda ku bank. And then you get so good at it. And then I started another journey. Now tech na ma computers, so that out of Diamond Systems, mi napiga job hizi subordinate jobs, lakini na learn computers. I ended up, coming out with my dip from JKUAT, information technology. It was my first dip, Diamond Systems, JKUAT, dip in technology, and that was before I even went to campus for the university degree. But the bringing, the upbringing, ilikuwa inakuticha wezi chagua job. Sa hiyo niko hapo kwa hiyo computer company. I'm working every day to work. So squeezy we're gonna get shocked maze. Unaweza hata sponsor mse course ya driving. Nasikia mse anakuambia basi nipe fare. So ilifika mahali hata kwa ofisi pale Dago. Mse akiwa 17-18 akiletwa na mother kwa ofisi, si uambia mother mazezi, weenda ukijana wachakamie mwenyewe. Juu wawezi kuwa unalewa ukiwa 18 years, 20 years, atiwe bado mother ndio anakushughulikia nini. I stepped out of home when I was 17. Out of 17 nikaenda kujitafutia. And at 17-18 I'd already started now paying fees for the brothers who fought me. Because unaangalia situation at home, unaona you're better off with one less mouth at the dining table. Unaenda tu hustle zako. So anafu nakam kuchipin kwa economy ya family.
Na ni lesson gani una draw from your experience ya waseku kwa spoon fed? Unapata msee ni young lion lakini amekataa kwenda hunting. Unapata msee ako 20 something bado kwa nyumba ya mother na vitu kama hizo. What crop of future men do you think wanakuwa brought out of the current societal setup? Yani kifika niyo design ya responsibility na going out there to fend for yourself.
Yo gunza yo ni profound. Kuna mse alisema tough situations make tough men. Easy situations make weak men. Generation ya mapero wetu ilikuwa generation ili come through very tough situations. Mapero wakakuwa wasee wa tough. Hii tuna bring up sahi, tuna bring up in very easy situations. And we are bringing up a very weak generation. And weak sio strength tu ya physical. Even mental fortitude. Mental fortitude. And the country is paying for it. For example, we are coming out of a COVID situation. We are coming out of a recession, an economic recession. How to treat that is productivity. Ukwe kwa shake, uproduce. Work hard, earn kitu. But because we are bringing up a generation that thinks everything should come easy, you see even the agitation itself is misplaced. That instead of agitating for better institutions, better systems, integrity, we are agitating for welfare. A time when a country cannot, we have an economy, we have our 3 trillion Kenya shilling economy. This is not an economy that can support a welfare state. But what are we agitating for? We are agitating for free everything. When our parents were bringing us up, there was no bursary. There was no CDF. There was no freebie actually. But now today, what we want to agitate for is welfare issues. How can we give something easy to somebody? Something someone has not earned. And welfare is not bad. There is a place where government needs to provide for safety nets, social safety nets. But the lesson that needs to sink to myself, any decision maker, but also to us as patriotic citizens, is that nothing should be expected from nothing. Yes. Get your hands dirty, put in the hours, put in the work, and if we won't learn from life, binadamu, then let's learn from nature. Yeah. Nature teaches us that any growth is an unfolding. Hakuna kitu toka nje. Flower unfold kutoka ndani. Seed germinate kutoka ndani. So you have to unfold from within. So what is that seed in your mind? How are you planting that seed? How are you watering it? How are you pruning it? How are you growing it? So that ultimately the harvest will come out of the jobo you put in. Lakini
ni powerful sana. Sasa ndio unakuta watu wanasema sawa, I'm not expecting anything from government. Maybe it's not giving. But then the government now, politicians and everything else, you go ahead and pass, say, the finance bill. Alafu watu wako, sasa mimi umeniachia nijitafutie, basi unakuja kuniongezea the taxes and the housing things. So on your end, do you think you voted for it? But do you think it's fair? Do you think people are reacting too fast, too early about it, that it will get better, the situation? Because the economy is really bad. But on the other side, ni kama we are now being strangled zaidi on the ile kidogo gava, could be the former mai, wametuachia. Wamechukua, because wase wanasemanga siku hizi ukiuliza mtu kwa salary ako chukua hii nipatie tax. It looks like tax in your mob. Yeah. What are your thoughts on some things like that, and what do you think is the way out?
We could do an entire podcast on just that one topic. Yes. And maybe what to say is to call upon Kenyans to just have a discerning spirit. Because you should not swallow every single narrative that is put out there. Some of these narratives have an intention. Someone will put out a narrative out there to benefit. Kuna mse anaweza eka narrative ya finance bill, but issue yake sio finance bill. Akona personal gain and I want out of it. And we've seen it even with my colleagues. Mse anapiga mdomo huko kwa funeral mazee story ya finance bill, but when it comes to voting, mse anaingia choo. Amuoni mpaka saa zile vote imeisha. So the narratives being put out there about the finance bill themselves are probably 80% incorrect. The situation of the finance bill, we can have a conversation on exactly the merits and the demerits and what would inform me to vote a yes on that bill. That is a conversation we can have separately. But the conversation that I would want to pick up is who is this guy we call government? Kibaki taught us that we are actually government. Kulipa ushuru ni kujitegemea. And the clamor that we should be having, the agitation that we should be having, should actually be on policing what government is taking out of your pay slip. Sawa gava imechukua tax. What is that tax going to do? So we put the people in positions to task that yes, we have put this tax and we are putting it in because we want a road. We want a school, we want a hospital, we want medicine in this hospital. So we are putting in this money to deliver the social goods. So you cannot afford to take this and pilfer. That would be a maandamano I would go into. It is an agitation I would go into. However, you cannot say, let's not collect tax. Because if you say that, the same person who says that it is not good to have our people taxed is also expecting CDF so that they can deliver some social goods to their people. But most importantly, on this finance bill 2023, the narratives on it have not been complete. Because there was nothing put in the finance bill 2023 that was not canvassed in the campaigns. The president, William Ruto, is the only presidential candidate who made a stop in every single one of the 47 counties, had an economic conversation not a rally, sat down with players, economic players in that county, and they listed what needs to get done to rejig the economy. These are the proposals that for the first time made a manifesto. So for the first time, a political party went to the people, had a people conversation and engagement, took what came out of that, put it in a manifesto. Then out of this manifesto, when the president took government, now it is what is in the manifesto that is implementing. So that when the conversation comes on the floor of the house, it is not a new conversation. If it is housing, it was canvassed throughout the electioneering process. If you're talking about debt and our international obligation, it came up as a conversation. Not only was it a conversation, each and every county in this country sat with the president and signed a charter for delivery. So the president is not waking up one morning and saying, this is a policy I'm putting out. It is a policy that was canvassed. It is on that platform that he was elected. He's not making up these things as he goes. If this is that housing bill you're talking about, the president had a proposal. The proposal he went to the people with was 3%. And when the finance bill came up and the agitation started, the president decided, no, okay, kama 3% ni noma, I'll go with a proposal for 1.5%. Do you know whose proposal it was? 1.5%? Hii tunaran kwa finance bill leo? It was an Azimio proposal. They were talking about housing and they were talking about 1.5% tax on housing. So the narratives that are being built around this agitation are, of course, to an end. And they might not be truly altruistic. There are some personal and selfish interests that mse anaona hii bandwagon ya finance bill ni bandwagon mimi naweza ride, ana ride nayo. Yes.
So safe to say you are against mandamanos.
No, boss. Mimi ndio mazeka kuna wase washaiandamana man. From our young age bana, pale Dago bana, when guys were grabbing your BP ground unaonanga leo. Sisi ndio wale watoi walikuwaga pale tukipigwa na marisasi your time. The Honorable Senator Beth Mugo was MP then. We were young, we were youthful. Anasema mazee place inagrabiwa. Si tuna nini? Your time unasema nadondolewa kwa stage bana. We were agitating. If you remember, 7 taxi drivers had been killed at Kawangware. And we were out there kuandamana. Kuandamana is a right. You have the right. However, you can't tell me that vandalizing the expressway will reduce the price of the cost of living. You can't tell me nikivaa sufuria kwa kichwa reduce price ya cost of living. Why wouldn't we just tell our people the truth? That at a time like this, when the economy is at the place it is at, we need all hands on deck. If you are a farmer, please put a seed on the ground. Let it grow. Kani bees, pambana na hiyo bees, let it happen. Kani hustle yako iraukie. Iyo kaye maze, vijana wajitume maze kwa media, kwa emerging industries kama vile sahi tuko hapa. Wase wafanya tu mavitu. It is not a time for division right now. Na ile upheaval unaona is not unique to Kenya. Right now, Europe is up in flames. But what is our media doing? Our media never tells us our stories beyond our borders. No one is telling people that the issue of cost of living is right now global. Ati ukienda London leo, there is rationing. In fact, it is so bad, London ukienda kununua vegetables, you're told you can only buy 2 tomatoes and a cucumber. It is so bad globally. We all know what is happening in Russia, Ukraine, and how that has upset the supply chains around the globe. No one is talking about the effects of the fluctuations of the dollar and the impact on economies globally. But let's give the positive vibe. The positive vibe is we're in a new world. After 2020, dunia ili change. we are setting into a new dispensation. We are setting into a glorious era. And it is going to be precedented by serious upheaval across the globe. You will see crazy things happening. Order, the systems will have to be reorganized, including democracy. So monetary systems are going to reset into something new. The governance and democracy is resetting. Pharma, healthcare, education, media, the world is resetting. So we are at a time of great upheaval that is not unique to Kenya. As we herald a new dawn into a new world. When you look at any prophecy, if it is a religious prophecy, the Bible talks of this time and the upheaval at this time. If you go into science, science is talking about heralding in the new age, which they call the Aquarius age, which will be the escalation of the humans from this age we are in into the spiritual age, the age of the Aquarius. If you go culturally, my culture speaks of a time such as this. If anyone studied the likes of, Shage Wakeviro, who people call Wakeviro, if you study some of the things some of these people had to say, they had talked about a time such as this. So we are just at the cusp of a whole new world order. And I pray that it is going to be a new world order that is proper, glorious, and then we elevate from this scientific materialistic age, and it is going to be precedented by a lot of upheaval. Yeah.
Amazing sana.
level
orator. Amazing sana. But kuna hiyo point umesema ya taxation. Of course, I think ni Benjamin Franklin alibonga akasema two things are guaranteed in the world, in this life, taxation na death. Right? But your point umesema ya police how taxpayers' money is being utilized is very important. And I think kwa ground people get mad at regimes, the former regime, the previous regime, even this regime. If you talk to people on the ground, watakwambia they feel like Orezo aliova promise lakini amekuja na design anaumiza. So me from where I sit, I think pia Orezo anafaa kuwa hands on in terms of ensuring that wale wase wamepewa majukumu wanalinda mali ya umma. We saw Magufuli doing it kwake in Tanzania. Ni nini na kuanga hard na Orezo wa Kenya? Wanajua tu mimi niko na CS mwenye anavionza mali ya umma, lakini aezi akakuwa mstari wa mbele kusema huyu msee aekwe ndani. Kandarasi inapigwa. We have a bill of quantities. Wanajua hii road inafaa kukuwa na street lights. Si ndio? Wanajua hii road inafaa kukuwa na lanes za baiskeli. Anakuja kufungua hiyo road na anaona haiko complete, lakini atanyamaza. Anapata Southern Bypass inafanywa recarpeting. Sijui kama imeharibika design inafaa kufanywa recarpeting, and yet kuna marodi zingine hazina hata unakia vitu kama hizo. Kwa nini amwezi mkamchanua mwambia kuja Hanson hata kama ni KJ umeblanda akuya kwambia KJ unaniangusha, na because of that sheria ichukue mkono wake.
You know what, hiyo ndio hata ingefai kwa tu submission. Ingefai kwa swali. You've said it. Igunza, you've said it. Kuna mse utuambia eternal vigilance is the price of freedom. Freedom unless you enjoy. The price we have to pay for it is eternal vigilance. So much so that si wote maze lazima tukuage tuko chonjo full time. Na hiyo si job ya president ama politician peke yake ama nini. If we are vigilant, we'll keep the members of parliament on their toes, the county assembly on their toes, the president on his toes, government na cabinet yake on his toes. What we should be asking is what are the instruments of vigilance? Tutatumia instrument gani kuwa vigilant? Yes. And the only way to do it is kuuliza outcome ile tuna want. If we want a positive outcome, how would we expect a positive outcome to come from a negative input? So much so that if we become a toxic nation, we become such a negative nation that if a snapshot ya Kenya ni zile vitu si uona zikitrend, hiyo ndio snapshot ya Kenya. Unaona negativity ingine ujai imagine, yani mse hata ajui feel ni nani, lakini yuko more than willing maze kuraruanisha feel. You do not know what his story is, you don't even know what his struggle is. He's a stranger, wewe umemkuta kwa social media, lakini maze uko negative. If our predominant, spirit is negativity, why are we surprised to harvest negativity? So we need to be vigilant. What we need to agree on is what are our instruments for vigilance, what are our instruments for agitation, but also can we just also grow? It's one of the biggest learnings I took out of the youth movement. I realized that Mau Mau had been here. Their tool was violence. These guys were out there actually decapitating people. When the second liberation crew came on, hakuenda kukata watu mavichwa, walikam na ideology. So the debate that was being held at that time was, do we become a socialist country or do we become a capitalistic side? Do we lean west or do we lean east? At the time of the discussion in the 90s, it was ideological. They had stepped up from the violence of the Mau Mau. By the time us guys were coming in, we were using new tools. Available to us then was the tools of new technology, new media. And we were not vile about it. We were not out to spite. In fact, for me personally, it was a total flip. It was humor. Borrowing it from this guy, he's a humorist, he's called Oscar Wilde. Oscar Wilde anasema, Oscar Wilde wrote so many satire books. He was a humorist. Alisema, if you want to tell them the truth, make them laugh. Otherwise they will kill you. So si tumebeba truth. Na hii truth najua mazeni potential ya kitu inaweza fanya hata uliwe. But ndio tuweze kusell your truth, unakam na humor. So yes, I'm for agitation. I'm for vigilance. But what instrument are we using? So much so that we can tell our country that there is no way you can plant negativity and get surprised when it becomes corruption, when it becomes theft, when it becomes shakahola. So collectively as a nation, we are incubating so much negativity, and then we get shocked when we see it manifesting as all these ills. We angalia tu any news bulletin. You look for one single uplifting story. Unaikosa. Can you imagine that that's the food that we are putting into our mental space collectively as a nation? And you can't undo natural laws. Natural laws are principles. Those natural laws are the ones we find in religion, in the Bible. They're the laws we find in teachings of philosophy. Natural laws tell us that in every single thought is a germ. And the moment that germ is planted, it will have to germinate. So as a nation, we will have to rethink how we reorganize our nation by thinking about what it is we are dwelling on, what is it we are putting energy to, because it will surely be answered 100%.
As we wind up, naona simu yako inaanza kulialia hapo. You're a comedian. It will never leave you. But now you're in a serious position in life and everything else. One, how do you unwind? Two, we see you drawing when you're in a serious renew, bado una draw zile vitu tunakujua nazo na bado unaandika. So how do you now bring out the humor aspect? Because it's not like you can go back to Redykyulass on stage and then you do a stand-up. Although I can challenge you to find a stand-up thing. And also, vitu tu kama hizo, ukiangalia industry pale iko. Watu kama kina Njugush wana come up and everything else. And people, uliona juzi wanalima Njugush sana. Wakisema he's a skit guy, not a stand-up guy. What are some of your thoughts on that?
I don't know if I ever became a comedian at any point or whether I became a politician. For me, I've just been myself. You know, right from primary school, we started standing in front of audiences, You know, I would imagine my first comedy skit was in standard 3. They used to call us up to the front of the class when the teacher doesn't show up to tell a story. Sijui kama unakumbuka hizo story. Hadithi njoo. So wale watoi wengine wakikampale mbele walikuwa napeana story. Mimi nilikuwa nakumbuka maze ni joke gani nilisikia. So nikisimama pale mbele maze, wase, kuna mse alienda kwa restaurant, akasaviwa supu, akasaviwa kijiko na uma na chapati. Sasa uko standard 3 in the 80s. Ati mse akaoga uso na supu, akajipanguza na chapati, akachanua nywele. Mazi watu hiyo wanaona hiyo ni comedy. Mtu alichanua nywele na uma, akajiangalia na kijiko kakio. Man, so right from primary school, I've just been doing me. So sijuangi ni time gani niko ni debate ya chuo ama ni drama, and I'm just doing myself. And to unwind, first of all, mi upenda me time sana. Mali ndakuwa tu na QT, quiet time. Waga ina help ku refocus. Juu siwaga kwa places in a noise mob, mi like kwa watu wengi, because the job requires for you to really listen and hear what people are saying. So nikipata hiyo quiet time, waga ina ni help sana ku unwind. Uketi tu kiwa solo, ukwe tu na hiyo time meditative, you help sana. Mi like kuchora. Sana. And kuchora sio doodling peke yake. Utanikuta mazena do modeling. Hata saa ingine na watoi unanikuta hapo na plasticine, to sculpture kidogo, to crafts and doodling is the go-to. I picked up doodling nikiwa high school, and nikalan could doodle heighten attention. When you're sketching as you're listening, una maintain your unaweza ku maintain your attention na focus for very long. And it happened in high school because I wasn't very good at going back to notes to read. I was not a studious student. But I used to pass my exams. And I would only pass exams because of what I had in classroom. Because I wasn't good in revising. I wasn't good in studying. Sina kukram. So
kusikiza.
Udichwa teaching nilikuwa na doodle sana. So it became a habit to date. Even in meetings you will find me doodling. Na hivyo naweza kuabsorb as much as I can. Mi like kudrive out. Kuna time hata utatoka tu pale bunge maze usikie maze finance bill imejaa sana. Una decide tu kuchase sunset. Naingia tu kwa gari. Hivyo tu solo maze unaenda unajionea tu the open spaces na uko solo hiyo time. Meaning it can be a very meditative moment. So for chill time, hizo ndio vitu utanikuta nikidu.
Wikizangi njeve kudrive sometimes ukiwa solo. Juu saizi we ni mwesh, na ukiwa mwesh pia na kwanga status symbol pia, utembee ukiwa na mabodyguard. Kwanza uko na mabodyguard wangapi wewe?
Waze feel nimewalk in na mabodyguard wangapi?
Solo. Waze mbona ungizi njeve?
As I told you, imekuwa ni continuation ya life. So hakuna mahali niliona life ina change. So kuna kitu nilikuwa naweza kudo without before nielektiwe, mi try kudo without it. Of course kuna time unaenda function. Utanid dere, ndio mahali unaenda uweze kushuka, gari utaweza kwenda kuipark. Kuna time uko kwa situations ziko na crowd control, so maybe utanid security yako. But man, mi try nisikanyage vidole mingi sana kwa hii life. So juu sijaenda nikakon igunza, sikuenda nikadanganya feel. Maze na kwa tu assured maze na yo verse inaniambia maze, God has not given us a spirit of fear. But a spirit of love, of kindness and of sound mind. Unajua maze hiyo ndio inani drive. Alafu fear pia ni kitu mbaya ati kupakoleti gifiwa. Fear wase wamedai wakiwa na mabodyguards. Wase wamekuwa hata kwa ma-accidents wakiwa na madere. So hauwezi live life na fear. So you will find me when it is necessary. Ndakuwa na hiyo squad, ndakuwa na hiyo crew. In the meantime, because they are also family men. Why would I be at a place tuna hang out na feel mpaka 3 a.m. ati msi ameningoja kwa gari, anangoja maze pengine ati nikunywe ni break ya kuja niokote. Pia hiyo waga naona pia haijai. So tuseme tu ni habit sija pick up. Sija pick up hiyo habit ya ku walking in crowds.
Mimi natumalizia kitu moja.
Yes.
Na video fulani ulifanya 90s but online siku hizi.
The prop.
This video trends on Twitter, I think, weekly. Kuna watu akumbuki awajuangi ni wewe. Reaction wanaanga ni MP. Hapo akiona hapo. Oh, I thought it was like 90 by now.
Mene the three. There's like a story behind it, huh? And crew ya Redix inaweza kuambia. Tulikuwa na Tony na Walter kwa Redykyulass. On this particular day, I remember Joey Mogwero was directing. Ni alikuwa na direct he shoot. This skit was not even going to make it for the show. This was a filler. Tumemaliza kushoot, tunarudisha equipment pale Nation Center. Maze hivyo tu kimchezo tukasema si tu set up. If you look at that, it is in the newsroom at Nation Center.
Sababu hizi ni zile nini zinakuanga hapo.
Simeziona. Tukai set up. Haina hata ma props.
Ainanga ndio wewe.
Bana. Ilikuwa ku freestyle.
Are you serious?
This was freestyle. Man, and some of the finest Redykyulass skits came about that way.
Off the cuff.
Maze, I've got to give it to Walter and Tony. Man, nimekuwa kwa hii creative. I've been in production. I've been in agency. I've done advertising. I've been in the idea space. But I'm yet to come across more spontaneous creators than Walter and Tony. Wale wase ni comic genius.
The drop of a hat.
Hey man, you would find ourselves, we had a regular show at the carnival. Like when it was Redykyulass night. Redykyulass night is what now became Churchill show. The Thursday, we used to be every Thursday at the carnival shooting Redykyulass. That's a night that we onboarded Churchill, and when we left Churchill akachwa Kidu. We would go to carnival on a Thursday afternoon, and all we would craft were the storylines. Mnasema hii ndio skit, mnaikraftia storylines. Mna banta hapo kidogo to punchlines. The rest would be co-created on stage. It was such an amazing creation process. Juu ushalan Tony so well, umelan Walter so well. So there's a time wataona hii ule mse anaweza deliver ni Tony. So unaianzisha, unaona Walter ameibuild, mazi ana seti punchline, lakini yeye ataka mna punchline. Mazi Tony anakuja ameifunika. So mene detere ilianza tu ka joke. But it was a very serious joke. What had happened? Kibaki had been elected. And there was a scandal at that time. Ilikuwa the Golden Bag scandal. And we had come out of a situation where we had been doing skits about Moi, and people could, because Moi ilikuwa imefika time amechosha watu. But Kibaki has been elected on a popular mandate, over 60-something%. Wakenya wamesema ndio mse. Then 6 months later, maze, scandal. So around that time, we were wondering, how do we make humor out of this situation? So we picked out one of the ministers. And the running joke there was, how would you pick a minister with a lisp and give him a ministry with all these essays? The Honorable Njenga Karume, God rest his soul, had this very heavy lisp. And his ministry was the Ministry of Special Programs. Vipevio. Maze hivyo ndio hiyo skit ilizaliwa.
Amazing sana.
Amazing.
Iko vital.
So generally tungeendelea, tutakuita tena leo. Umeshika
kuna point ya Redykyulass hatujaitoa vizuri.
Leo
itakuja next time.
Yes, so thank you very much, Mahesh. It's still weird calling you Mahesh.
Even if you KJ na KJ wa
nikipigia simu na bro niko aloka kwa president
kwa chemba.
Yeah, but I never. Oh yeah, this guy is an MP actually. He does really serious job. So thank you very much. It's a pleasure seeing you again, by the way, and also for coming to our podcast.
Awesome.
Tutaendelea hivyo, tutamuleta tena. Na at this point sasa atakuja tu, tutaongea, tunaweza ambia ase waulize maswali zao ama tuongee Redykyulass ndani.
Yeah man.
Alete program nyingine hapo. So thank you very much. See you around.
And I've got to say this is probably one of the better conversations I've had in a long time. Nice. You both of you are in media. Yes. You know, vile media imekuwa. Maze media iko stuck up vibaya sana. Very stuck in its ways. Yeah. But things are changing bana. Even media will have to change, otherwise it aita survive. Easy upheaval. I like the idea. Na like convo baze. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to have a conversation. Kuna time nilispeak in 2007. Nilipewa position ya give keynote address at the launch of the Jubilee Party pale Kasarani. Na nilikuwa tumsea anaitwa Frantz Fanon. Frantz Fanon was a Pan-Africanist. Na kwa book yake inaitwa Wretched of the Earth, amesema that every generation must, out of relative obscurity, discover its mission, and after discovering its mission, decide whether to fulfill it or to forfeit it. I wanted to throw this challenge to us as a generation. Je, tunajiuliza hizi maswali? Kuna ma generations zimeenda before us. Generation ya ma founding fathers, the group of us, kina Jomo, kina Jaramogi, wamedu job yao. Kuna generation ilikam ya Moi, Kibaki, Raila, walidu job yao. Kuna generation iko at the helm sai, generation ya kina Ruto na Rigathi, hiyo generation ndio sasa iko in power. Sika generation. Tunajiuliza maswali. How are we positioning to take over the mantle? Because if we don't position ourselves to take over the mantle, two things might happen. Either to lose plot kabisa, na tunaweza bani country na tuiban kabisa, ama tukue bypassed by another upcoming generation. Generation fulani tu iangalie maze ione awako. Maze watu ondoe tu kwa hiyo mix, uone succession imeruka generation fulani. So whatever you do, mahali uko kwa ile kona uko, as much as you've got such big expectations out of government and the leadership that you have given them mandate, kama mse amepewa mandate, maze it's incumbent mse deliver on that mandate. Wale wako kwa positions to work hard to deliver on that mandate. But even as we are looking upon everyone else to solve the problems, man, it will have to start with us. To come generation after generation, we have been taught to look for help outside. And that's the tragedy even of religion. Religion ili teach watu kutafutaga help out there. But maze unakumbusho maze, don't you know that your body is the temple of the Lord? So even as you're going to look for help out there, your help kutafuta help out there ndio imetupeleka Shakahola. Maze keti tu na God wako maze. Ujisikize maze, ujiulize purpose yangu kwa life. Na ukisha discover your purpose, maze move at it. Against all odds maze. Ini maboy wako hapa kwa couch maze, wanasukuma podcast. While they would have been in some newsroom somewhere earning big salaries nini. Kuingia tu mungekwamia kwa tu kwa hiyo system. Wewe mwenyewe ukidu ile kitu ina need kuduiwa. Your family do ile kitu ina need kuduiwa. Ka society na ka neighborhood ka do ile kitu inaduiwa. Community do. That's how you change the nation. But si utakaga wasee wa change. Lakini si hataki kuchange.
True that.
Ule msee ndio anani maza ule msee. So your attitude ya finger pointing tunaona fruits zake. Yeah.
Kweli John.
That's the show.
Na wasee wangu wa Convo, maze, thank you very much for watching this show. Na maze, uliza maswali kuhusu hii conversation tumekuwa nayo. The more unauliza hiyo maswali ndio wase watani invite tena kuyajibu. Kama ulizi maswali maze, hawataona reason ya kuni invite tena. Asante.
Thank you sir.